Just because Marc Daniels isn't here doesn't mean there's no beat of sports. Filling in for Mark, here's Mike Talk.
Let's do this. It's a Thursday on the Beat of Sports, FM 96.9, The Game in AM 740. Thank you for listening to us. Chris Vasquez here with me. Marc Daniels actually will be joining us in our next segment a little earlier than normal. His flight prepared to leave a little bit earlier than normal, I suppose, because we had him scheduled later. No baseball game last night. I'm sure Mark would have enjoyed leaving last night, even though it is a happy valley. Not so happy with the rain last night.
He did broadcast from the stadium, the baseball stadium yesterday, and he showed the view of the mountains from where he was broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'd be distracted by the mountains the whole time calling a game. Like, I would love to go.
Wouldn't it be very good for the game and those listening?
Probably not.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not the one calling.
Yeah, I know. And Mark would probably say this too, because he's broadcast from Provo. Like, that is as scenic a view.
That one, BYU, BYU.
Washington, Seattle. That's a beautiful view. Mark hasn't been there yet. Maybe they'll get a trip out west one day there. And obviously the Rose Bowl is as gorgeous as they come.
I keep trying to bug our engineer, Frank Lover, who does, he engineers the UCF games, the football games. I love to engineer just one of these out west schools where there's mountains in the background.
Let me fill in, Frank.
But
put me in, coach.
There'd be no one back here to produce the football game.
Yeah, it's a minor thing.
Just minor.
Yeah. So we'll get Mark's thoughts on what happened last night. He got to pop on the mic and go on air briefly. Yep, it's raining out. No baseball today. So where do we begin? I want to save a few things for Mark here. The breaking news. I'll get your thoughts on the big breaking news this morning. Kirk Cousins.
I love your crowd goes mild.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. They need a starting quarterback, so I suppose he slots in as their starter for now. Fernando Mendoza had his pro day yesterday, so interesting timing with all of that. Are you surprised Fernando Mendoza looked good at his pro day?
Oh, my goodness. At a pro day with no defenders and in tights and probably no shirt. And
what a bad one. I remember Teddy Bridgewater was like throwing the ball all over the place at his.
It doesn't mean anything.
Which is sort of funny because he ended up becoming a decent pro quarterback.
Exactly.
You would think it'd be the guy that, oh, God, we should have seen that coming. The guy bust.
Doesn't mean anything.
I mean, it probably means a little something.
I don't think
you don't want to be airmailing passes and all over the place. You don't want to be a receiver and dropping every ball. Like, it does mean something.
Do we not have tape on these guys from the previous season?
We do.
Where there's defenders, when they're in helmets and pads and in an actual game, not just running around in tights.
Like, I don't think he was wearing tights yesterday.
You know what I mean? Like, pro days are
performing ballet for the audience.
Pro days are such a waste of time.
No, they're not. Chris, people have jobs and responsibilities. Scouts and general managers actually have jobs to do.
What do you get from watching someone at a pro day?
Their interactions with people, for one. You actually get to interact with them, too. Those are as big as you can come by. And by the way, like, if you're, and you know this, I'm not preaching to you, like, if you're a team, you can't go to every game during the season. You'd like to be at a lot of them, right? And we do know when, there's select people in crowds for big games where they're watching a lot of different players, but you can't be everywhere.
Right.
So it's an opportunity for you to be there in the moment, whether it is at the scouting combine or at a person's pro day.
Whatever you want to take from the pro day, I would say take it with a grain of salt.
You'd be the GM said, no, we're not going to pro days. We're not going to the combine. I'm just going to sit and watch the games on Saturdays.
We have coaches
we'll draft
now.
Off of that.
Coaches and coordinators and GMs that aren't even going to combines.
That's the thing. The coaches don't get to, right? The coaches don't ever get to be. They're doing their jobs.
But now they're starting to skip the combines.
Some of them, not all of them. Most of them are there. Who wasn't there? McVay wasn't there, right? I don't even know who else wasn't there.
Are we going to go back down the combine?
No, I'm trying not to. You are literally pulling me into the well right now. Lassie, help.
No.
Chris is pulling me into the well of he hates workouts and 40s and three-cone drills.
Pointless, all of it. Well, anyways.
Yes.
Kirk Cousins. He'll be a good mentor. And we were talking during the break for the bridge. why do athletes not take the Kirk Cousins approach to contract negotiations? Why do they all want the 5-year deal?
Because Tua is getting paid now. He wouldn't otherwise be.
Okay, if you're good enough,
you have to be good enough. But I'm saying, like, not everyone is going to keep being great. Darrelle Revis, and who I brought up, and they're rich because they kept delivering.
Like, it makes so much more sense to bet on yourself 1, 2, maybe 3 years max at a time, and just keep, banking on those new contracts instead of signing a 5-year deal and then halfway through it, I want a new deal because someone else reset the market.
Well, that's what happens. I mean, that is what happens. It's no different than you are betting. You're constantly, even if it's a 5-year deal, you're either, if you play well enough, the team's going to reset it for you. Either they're going to bonus you money or give you an extension of some sort because it makes sense cap-wise, right? But you're fighting for that anyway. And yes, I mean, the obvious answer is Tua or Kyler or anyone that has not made it to the end of their deal because of performance. Now that money, you're guaranteed all that money. That's why you signed the long-term deal. That's not why you're going. It's interesting, like in the NBA, a lot of guys starting doing the 1 year. I mean, even before LeBron got old, like the 1 year deal, 2nd year option to like give themselves choices, but also to take in more money. But they felt like they were on the top of the sport and we're going to deliver on that and just make more money. But if you're not that guy, it's no different than baseball. There's minor league guys that are signing multi-year deals, like, 8 years.
The guy with the Mariners who hasn't even played in the big leagues.
Right. He's going to be very good, though. He's on my fantasy AL only dynasty team. He is. I kid you not.
A fantasy AL only
auction draft. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
I have
a family. I have friends. I'm fine. No, he's really good. I mean, yes. But I mean, 8-year, $95 million or something along those lines? Why? Because the team feels like, God, if we don't do it now, in 2 years, he might be worth $300 million. So and if you're that age, right? It's the argument, guarantee yourself money in the bank. Put the money in the bank. You don't want to run the risk of what happens if something doesn't work out, an injury happens, and all of us. It's the same reason why guys turn pro early. And we're starting to maybe see less of that now because of NIL. Like, that's the good offshoot, is guys that maybe weren't quite ready for the league, whatever league we're talking about, stay, get paid, improve so that they're more ready, and they secured themselves more than just an insurance settlement, right? Those are all nice and good. But, the Marcus Lattimore's, the former South Carolina running back of the world, you hate hearing and seeing those kind of stories.
Yeah. No, I get it.
But Kirk, yes, he got very rich.
Like Kirk did it the absolute smart way, and he bet on himself. And I mean, the Vikings kept wanting to pay him. The Falcons gave him $100 million.
The Redskins were the team that really did it.
Yeah,
the Redskins were the ones going, "Hey, we think you're really good, but," and they just kept playing that really, 1 year franchise deal, like a guy that's.
Did they tag him twice?
Yeah. And a guy that's not, and I say not worth it because he's not a top 5 player at the position, never was, but he was getting paid accordingly.
Yeah.
Right. That's always, to me, the argument for what you're saying is, if you're clearly not top 5 and they want to pay you top 5, yeah, I get you want the long term, but at some point you go, well, I'm not really worth this much annually, so they're overpaying me to stay.
Yeah. I mean, again, I applaud the way Kirk Cousins has handled his business, and he's continued to get paid, and he's made a ton of money. Good for him. I think more athletes would benefit kind of taking the Kirk Cousins route.
Real quick, because I want to get to Mark here, but we assume, barring incident, they're going to draft Fernando Mendoza number 1.
Right.
How many games does Kirk Cousins start before Mendoza becomes the starter?
I think Fernando Mendoza is starter day 1.
Do you?
Yep.
I don't. I think they slow play it. I think we're looking at October minimum.
I do think that there is a benefit to waiting to start Fernando Mendoza. I do think there's a benefit a lot of times to waiting on starting a rookie quarterback, a la look at Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, it doesn't always turn out like that. But I think if you're drafting him number 1, you can't. You got to start him right away. You got to
I
start him
don't
right
feel
away.
like I don't feel like you have a gun to your head just because you take a guy 1 versus 5 or 6 or 8. Like you have to, and I think it matters who's there. And I think they bring in a guy that you'd feel comfortable. And no one's expecting the Raiders to be a playoff team this year,
Right.
right? So you feel comfortable slow playing it, let them learn the ropes, maybe even identifying the strengths and weaknesses of your own team. I mean, what does
Yeah.
that wide receiver room look like? What does the
that-
offensive line look like? I mean, they got a lot of questions right
Yeah.
now. So
They
maybe
did
you let Kirk go through some of that early.
They did upgrade at center, but yes, their offensive line is still a question. Yes, they have Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, but
You're
who
right.
is he throwing to?
You named the answers.
Who is
There's
he
a lot
throwing
more
to?
questions.
Who is he throwing to? So no, from that standpoint, I completely agree. But they did make a lot of moves on the defensive side of the ball
They
during
needed
free
to.
agency.
They were pretty terrible.
So
and they didn't make one move that didn't happen. We're still trying to figure out.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
All right, Marc Daniels will join us next. I did listen to you guys a little bit yesterday, and I was screaming at the radio. So Mark and I are going to have a discussion. Mark and I don't disagree much, and I don't know that we necessarily disagree on this point.
I think I know where you're going with it too.
I don't think we disagree, but I think that we are looking at it a little bit differently. So I want to have that discussion with him next. Don't go anywhere. BOS Sports on FM 96.9 The Game.
It's almost like an unwritten rule that when you become a father, you become king of the bad dad jokes.
What is Forrest Gump's password? 1Forrest1.
Are you ready to laugh? We know at least one person is. Here's CB's dad joke of the day.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so excited for this one, but I know you're just going to roll your eyes and you're going to hate me for it.
10 minutes ago, he said, you're going to hate this one. So we're aiming high here.
What is the Easter Bunny's favorite restaurant?
Easter Bunny, favorite restaurant. Got to tell me.
IHOP.
It's not bad, actually. That isn't bad. See, I told you. Undersell, over-deliver. That's how we do it. Now, you shouldn't be crying. Maybe you're taking it too far right now, but that's pretty good. I'll tell my 9-year-old that. He'll probably, tell me I'm cringe, but that's good. That's a dad joke.
Utah, Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma. From somewhere else in the country, let's welcome the host of the Beat of Sports as a guest on his own show. Here's Marc Daniels.
Beat of Sports, FM 96.9 The Game, AM 740. Orlando sports leader. Mike Tuck, Chris Vasquez, Marc Daniels. I did not get to listen last night, Mark. I was told you did go on the air. I don't know if you went all Kevin Harlan and we're calling raindrops or how that went. So,
oh no, we got it was a classic rain out.
Yeah. Did you not go on the air though?
No. So I got
okay.
done with the show yesterday, so as you can tell, my voice is completely gone.
Yeah, that's what CV was saying.
Times a year. And so I get done with the show yesterday at noon. I get back to the hotel and I get a text from Rich Wallace, UCF baseball coach, and he says rained out. And I said official. He said official. Now, at that time, the forecast was 90% rain by 6 o'clock and first pitches at 5:30. Well, you know what happens then. The forecast changes. It was sunny at 6 o'clock.
No
last
kidding.
night. Could have easily played. The rain
kidding.
came at like 10:30 and rained through the night, but they made the decision. And, you know, I mean, ultimately Penn State's coach gets on final say, because like, it's going to rain and they're not having a good season. And quietly, UCF, I don't think complains because they saved some pitching of a midweek game and they got a big series at West Virginia. So, there's a chance to rest the voice. And I watched one really good NBA team destroy another. That was the Celtics beat the Heat while I'm watching the Magic and the Hawks on my computer. And that was almost identical. I swear, I don't know, the Hawks are 17-2 their last 19.
And about half those games are against good teams.
Correct. And, the thing that was so frustrating about the Magic game again last night, there's a moment that adversity happens and they tuck their tail between their legs and they're done, and their body language is terrible. They made some of the most bonehead turnovers one day after they made bonehead turnovers in a game that they won, and got blown out by a team that wants to win, that wants to play, that seems to be, playing together and within their system. And I thought last night was, unfortunately, another embarrassing moment for the Magic, and it was a little bit more of finality on a lot of stuff. That you saw the frustration of Jamal Mosley boil over last night with his post game and his answer to Jason Beattie's question. To me, it was him waving a white flag, that he realizes that the season isn't going anywhere, and I think he also realizes his status. And that's unfortunate, but that's just kind of where they're at. And I think the players feed off of that also. And it's another wasted year. I mean, they'll get to the play-in. I mean, can you imagine a Heat Magic 9-10 play-in game looming here? Good grief.
Yeah. No, and it's a struggle. KV and I were talking about on the bridge to identify how they got to this particular place, because it's not, the injuries might take away wins and losses, but the identity of the team has been completely lost, where you look at, they might have struggled from three and they might have struggled with their shooting in the last couple of years, but they were always in games because of their defense. They'd win ugly, they'd lose ugly, but that's not there. And it's a lot of the same components and parts, and adding Desmond Bane doesn't take, that off the table. So it's hard to watch and figure out how they got to where they're at right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are just happening that makes a bad mix. I think you've got a coach that has run out of options. He doesn't understand what he can do. I think you have players that have tuned him out, and I think you have guys that just choose to not fight through stuff. And it is unfortunate because, the fan stays in the city and goes through year after year of a lost year. Players come and go. But I think a Magic fan has been asked to be patient many, many times. And then when you have expectations for a season. So all these things can be true. Jamal Mosley can be a good guy that you root for, and this just isn't working out. The Magic have been decimated by injuries, and that is true. The Magic have, I think, potential star players that at times are immature and don't handle adversity. And they've got a lot of role players that are playing extended minutes, and all those things lead to the type of year that you have. And, reality is setting in that, barring some incredible turnaround and this team got hot, it's another wasted year. And that's hard, I think, for fans to take, especially when you had different goals and expectations for the year. But that was just really bad. And the way they're losing games, it's like drawing out the misery. It's not like, hey, you're in a game and man, they're losing these close games by 1-2 possessions. I mean, there's nothing more painful for a fan to sit through your team down 35 with 18 minutes to still play in the game.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like I was watching the Heat Celtics game, and Boston could not miss a shot to start. They put a 53 first quarter point. The game's over. The Heat's
Right.
body language is done. And you look at me like there's 36 minutes still to play the game. The game's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
10 o'clock, WYGM Orlando, WJRR HD2 Cocoa Beach, FM 96.9, the game, AM 740. And it does speak, I think, in larger scale, though, back to that identity thing. You mentioned Boston, and regardless of who's been out on the floor, they've been able to maintain that identity. It's why they're sitting at 2 with a chance now to win a title when everyone thought they were a lottery team. Even Denver, you can point to the teams that are good. They've had injuries as well. They've been missing key components for stretches of the season, and they're not in the position the Magic are in part because they know who they are, and the guys that step in, identify what their roles are and what needs to change, and it's spoken through the locker room, and guys are connected. I mean, it's very obvious that this team is not, and it's hard to say if it's just the coaching staff, or if it is systematic of the players underneath this coaching staff, and that's going to be the tough thing for whoever's in charge in the offseason to identify. Is it just one thing, we change the coach and the rest changes, or do we have to identify who the problems are in the locker room?
The many C's: culture, chemistry, coaching, competing, championships. You can say that about the Celtics, picking on the C's there. I think the Magic lack a lot of that right now. Yeah. I just think, because again, I did watch the Boston team that played without Tatum the entire season until recently, and guys know their roles, but you could just see that they're locked in and engaged. And the sad part, it's both Miami and Orlando, because defense had been staples of them, and their defense is just horrendous. It's just terrible. And particularly with the Magic, just look at these last 2 games. The turnovers have led to so many easy points for the opposition. And then if you can't shoot, and what did Orlando start? I think 1 for 15 from 3. You're done. You're done. I mean, you can't win in the NBA if you can't shoot, and then if you don't defend, forget it. It doesn't work. But the Mosley post game last night to me was his white flag to say, I get what's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. We're all in this, and I don't know how to fix it. And this is just where we are.
All right. So I was listening to you guys yesterday, and I don't even know that we necessarily disagree, to be clear on this. But I do feel like, in listening to you, Mark, that you were overlooking what I thought was patently obvious about the Dan Hurley situation, okay? There's no way that I could watch that play 100 times after the game-winning shot goes in and he's rubbing heads with Roger Ayers and think that is normal behavior.
Oh, I didn't say it's normal. I know. I mean, there's a lot about Dan Hurley that's not normal, but I just think there's a reality that we tend to understand people over a period of time and accept it. I don't endorse Hurley's actions throughout the game, but the fact is that referees have accepted his constant berating of them. Otherwise, he'd be ejected every game. And I think to not take that into account, and life's not fair, is totally misreading the story. If he has no history of sideline antics and does that, that's a different story. He's done this for his entire career, and therefore we just adjust. It's not right. It's the same thing why certain guys get away with committing fouls all the time, or guys get fouls called on their behalf. And my point is that Hurley's done that not over 1 year or 2 years. He's done it over career coaching at different places, and therefore officials just kind of accept that stand. And I think Roger Ayers is like, yeah, Dan's been yelling at me for the last decade. It's no big deal, and it's different versus the coach that doesn't have that personality or history. I'm not saying it's acceptable behavior. I'm just saying, though, that did anybody really think they were going to call a check there?
No, and that's where I'm not arguing at that point. Like, there was no point I thought you got to tee him up or you got to tee up the UConn bench for moving on to the floor. Like, that's never, not what I'm bringing to the table. But and you said accept, so we're on the same page. I refuse to accept that as normal, and I do feel like almost like Draymond or anyone else that continues to act the fool and make these foolish choices and decisions that doesn't represent who we'd like them to be, because I respect Dan Hurley. He's obviously a championship coach who is a brilliant offensive mind, frankly, I think, with some of the things he does. But someone needs to sit him down. Dan, his dad, sit him down. Dan, you have to stop this. This is nonsense. It is complete nonsense. There is no excuse for doing what he did. He would reprimand a player for acting similar under that circumstance.
Okay, but are we going to do that? And you have the same expectation of Rick Pitino and any other coach that does this, or Kelvin Sampson and Mick Cronin.
I haven't seen them rub heads with an official, Mark.
I just think we're being a little bit not realistic because of analyzing what happened. He didn't purposely go in to headbutt the guy, and I think that matters. And ultimately, it was on Roger Ayers. And for us to think we know what Ayers is thinking is also ridiculous. And by the rule book, sure, it's a technical. By the rule book, they should have received technicals because there's 9 people in the court when the shot is hit.
Right.
I just think we have to be realistic as well.
Yeah. No. I'm not even asking for a punishment. That's not. But I'm just saying, I've never observed Rick Pitino doing that, or Mick Cronin, or anyone that even Grouchy. Tom Izzo. No one has ever gone and rubbed faces with an official. Like Bobby Knight, we have come down over him, one of the greatest coaches in college basketball history, because of his unsportsmanlike behavior. I don't mind that he's barking at officials. Do I find it unflattering at times? Of course. But this is come on, man. That's not normal.
Okay, so you're the AD. Okay, so you're the AD, and you want to talk to him at the end of the season.
Yes,
I think he's going to change.
Not even into the season. On the plane, hey, Dan, don't do that. That's not a good look.
Change? You think he's going to change?
I hope he does, because what bothers me, and I was always a big, I didn't like Will Muschamp as a football coach when he was at the University of Florida, because the way he behaved on the sidelines is not the way he would preach for his players to act on the field. I hate when coaches preach to have, poise, and they don't.
He didn't win.
No, I know. But winning shouldn't allow for you to, and at some point, Bobby Knight didn't allow for him to be at Indiana anymore either.
Because he stopped winning at that level. Look, in theory, you're right, and I agree with you. I'm just being a little bit more realistic that personalities like this, when they win, we tend to justify the actions. I admit that I'm doing it right now, because if Hurley averaged 12 wins a year, he went last, but he delivered championships. Right. So therefore, we have more patience with it. And if you win, you tend to just get away with it. And I think it's also unfair for people to know the history of him and Ayers if you're just from a distance watching it.
I agree. And I heard what you said about official and other people that chimed in. Yeah, I agree. That's not even what my argument is. It's just it felt like you were too apologetic in favor of Dan Hurley for what was.
I may have been, and I admit he's grown on me. But he actually, but he's grown on me because I think he's a phenomenal coach.
Yes,
he re-evolved. He changed his offense. He copied a lot of European stuff, and he just does things that I think are really, really good. And I admit that has influenced my opinion about him. But I think that's also natural when we see successful people, and you get beyond the personality of the craziness, and a lot of mad geniuses are that way. And then when it wears off, then we're bothered by that stuff again.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's the case with Hurley. Look, there's a lot of people that don't like him, and I'm probably in the minority, but he's not going to change no matter what. And if he wins a championship, he'll probably, personally headbutt every official next year and get away with this.
All right, Mark, I know we have to let you go. Safe travels to you, my friend.
Right, guys, thank you.
Hope your voice feels better. Marc Daniels. I apologize. I thought he actually went on the air last night. Just for a pregame for the game last night.
He broadcasted the Beat of Sports from the baseball stadium.
Okay. Gotcha. Oh, yeah. I knew that. Yeah. Okay. No, just misunderstanding. Because all the game obviously was rained out yesterday. I refuse to accept that someone can't grow. Right? That's where I think we part ways on the end of that argument is no, I won't accept on the face, like my son, right? Like, who got his report card yesterday, right? And they have S's and O's and N's and things like that for other things. And, he got like 4 S's or whatever. And he said, those are good. I said, those are acceptable. Like, don't accept, hey, this is as far as I can be. Why can't you be outstanding? Why can't you have an O in this? What is keeping you from that? Right? The minute you accept, no, this is who they are, this is who they're going to be, right? Do you think Dan Hurley does that with his players when they come to him? Hey, you're not a very good 3-point shooter. I'm just going to accept that everything you shoot now is going to be in the paint. Or, hey, you're not really much of a ball handler. Let's not work on that. You just make sure you pass it to somebody who can't handle the ball. I really doubt that's the case. He demands growth in learning from his players, and I would demand that from him. I'm not taking away from his coaching. He's a phenomenal coach. He has a chance to win 3 out of 4. That speaks for itself. He's an incredible coach. Am I bothered at times by his demeanor on the sidelines and things he's done over the last handful of years since he's been? Yeah, at times. Do I accept it as far as some coaches are more vulgar and Coach Hart? We got into this discussion mid-tournament because of the interactions of Cronin and Izzo and him and how tough they can be on players. And hey, is that like, yeah, that's totally acceptable. I'm fine with hard coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally feel like, you need to strike a balance there, right? And find what pushes people individually, right? Not saying they don't. And I think sometimes for those that are accused of that, they can't find the other side of that coin. And they don't keep themselves accountable by the same way they keep their players accountable, which is why I brought up the Muschamp. That which drove me crazy. Mm-hmm. He'd lose his mind on the sideline, show no poise, and yet he's supposed to demand poise of his players. How are you gonna ask your players to be poised, not pick up penalties when you're the one who loses his mind every time something doesn't go his way? And it just is weird. Like, I don't know how you could watch that 100 times and not think every time, what is he doing? That is so weird. It was a weird interaction. I don't care if you know the guy. I want to go up to UCV and do that. You'd probably be like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
Right? It was a weird interaction.
I see Mark's point of view. I argued yesterday, again, if kid who hit the shot, if he goes over the top with a celebration and he gets a tech and that ends up costing the team the game, right, we are ripping him to shreds.
Right. Because he didn't keep his poise in that moment. Like, if he outwardly went after an official, which it appeared Hurley did, right? Like, I'm not saying he deserved a technical, but he clearly went up to Roger Ayers, whether he knows him or not, and he knows him. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a weird
because
thing
then you
to
even
do.
get into, well, yes, I mean, they all know each other on some level, and then you'd be crying foul if like, oh, like, what is this? Like, we got the Mahomes, the referee's wearing Chiefs jerseys kind of meme going on. Like, what is this? Like,
right. But at the same time, I don't think Dan Hurley's going to change either.
Mark might be right, and you might be right in saying that. I'm just saying, like, I refuse to accept. Well, no, he's just going to be him. Like, no, why? You can't identify an error of your ways and change your ways?
What's the saying? You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
He ain't that old.
53.
And once you accept that to be fact, no, you're not going to change your ways. Am I wrong? Like, if you accept that, then yeah.
I don't think he's going to change, and I think the winning is a large part of it. I am who I am. We're winning because of who I am.
Right.
Why change?
People are going to be people. You have to manage people. No different than like a Dennis Rodman, that you love him when he's on your team, you hate him when he's on another team. Mm-hmm. Matt Barnes, a guy like that. Like, Magic fans loved him when he was here. You probably didn't like him when he was on another team because of the way he behaved.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean, again, like, there's a difference between accepting and
he keeps winning.
Empowering.
He keeps winning.
I know.
That's all we care about.
That's
all we care about is winning. End of the day, winning and money. That's all that matters in this world.
Really quick, like, side note, like, so Mullen's shot goes in and everyone loses their minds. Still 0.3 of a second. I know they moved it to 4, but 0.3 at that moment. Can you imagine for a moment? This would have been brilliant, and it really would have forced the referee's hand. Now, I've looked at it, and it would have had to been either Caden, who dropped back under the basket after he turned it over, or Sarr. Those were the two closest guys to the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if they took the ball and inbounded it. Like, hey, let's just try to get it in and throw a Hail Mary. What do you do then? There's 9 Huskies on the floor.
That's
On the floor.
technical.
You know what I
It should have
mean?
been.
Imagine the insanity there. If that would have been incredibly high IQ to try to do that, but just saying, like, it's a thought that crossed my mind as we were, discussing
Yeah.
and I didn't think this was going to go anywhere. I didn't even bring it up Tuesday, in part because I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I thought it was very weird when it happened, but yeah, very odd. Very odd. No, I'm just not going to accept that you can't get better. That's not the way I'm wired. You can get better. And Hurley's a champion, dude. If anyone knows, his family are champions. Like, I don't know. He's a great coach. Great coach. Going to talk a little bit more Final Four. It was interesting. So Bill Self announced he was returning yesterday, which means Kansas doesn't need to look for a coach. North Carolina is. The Athletic polled a bunch of college basketball coaches on what the best job is in America. They have their top 10 of the 51 coaches, assistant and head coaches they surveyed. See how many you can identify that fit into that top 10 and what that means in the grand scheme of things next year on the Beat of Sports.
Welcome back to the Beat of Sports. Filling in for Marc Daniels, here's Mike Tuck.
Coming up, we got Cam Mellor talking some NFL draft. I'll ask him what I asked CV earlier about what Kirk Cousins signing might mean for Fernando Mendoza and when he might see the field this year for the Raiders, presuming they take him number 1 overall. That's Chris Vasquez. I'm Mike Tuck. Marc Daniels' voice is recovering on the road. He'll be back on the air, God willing, tomorrow as they land. I guess West Virginia is their next stop, so that's a convenient trip, obviously, in scheduling.
Right.
Didn't need to really stop in Pennsylvania in the middle of the week, I suppose, but with no baseball game being played. Bill Self announced yesterday a little bit of a surprise. I know a lot of people that thought he was going to be done with his health being what it was. There was even a felonious report that when Kansas got eliminated from the tournament that he would be announcing, which obviously was both premature and incorrect. But there was a lot of scuttlebutt throughout the course of the season. This would be Bill Self's final year. It is not. He announced he's returning for his 24th season. A couple of national titles, one of the most successful coaches in Kansas history and in college basketball history. He's done an incredible job. I mean, just dominating the Big 12 every year. Not recently, but the Big 12 has gotten better. But certainly that's one less job on the shelf. So they took at The Athletic. They did this 5 years ago. The list is a little different than 5 years ago. They surveyed 51 coaches, head coaches, and assistant coaches in America, and they were just asked a simple question, however they wanted to evaluate it, which includes location, money, history, accessibility to stars, whatever, like all those things. What's the best coaching job in America? Their answer was?
It's got to be Duke.
It was Duke. Dominant. Not even close. The answer was Duke. 5 years ago, it was Kentucky. So even with Coach K in the fold. But now it's Duke. They had 233 points in their 1-2-3 scale of points. Not even close. The Duke Blue Devils, number 1. Clearly, John Shire right now. Again, I don't even know how you pick on necessarily his coaching. I don't think you're paying attention. You're picking on his coaching. You can pick on the fact they've come up short in the tournament. That's fine. But even I'm not sure that's coaching as much as the players not performing. But they recruit, they win, and they win, right? 2, 3, and 4 are separated by 1 point.
Wow.
So what are 2, 3, and 4?
I would imagine UNC's got to be up there.
North Carolina is tied for second.
I would imagine Kentucky, no?
Kentucky is tied with North Carolina. And 1 point behind them in fourth.
Let's go Florida.
No. The Gators, the reigning national champions, at least for another few days, finished 8th. A very distant 8th, but 8th.
Okay.
So still a really good job, top 10 job in America. I was going to ask you about Florida until you brought them up.
Arizona's good. I'll say Arizona.
Arizona's 6th. It's a big drop from 1 to 2, 3, 4, and then another big drop from 4 to 5.
Did I say? I said Kentucky. Trying to think. Gonzaga's always been a good school.
No, believe it or not, Gonzaga is not up there. So that says a lot about Mark Few. That I guess if Mark Few left, people would not be pushing Gonzaga.
I'm just going based off teams that have always been really good.
That's the way you should do this.
Virginia's always been a good school.
Virginia did not receive any votes. New coaching staff in place after Tony Bennett retired. Those receiving votes but not winning, keep thinking. I'm just stalling for you.
Okay.
Michigan State.
Oh, I'll say Michigan.
Indiana. Michigan was 7th.
Okay.
Purdue, Arkansas, Illinois, Texas Tech. And they're not in the top 10, but they receive votes. Arkansas, Texas Tech, no offense, but a lot of money involved there. Indiana, a lot of money involved there. The other schools, Illinois is in the Final Four. Michigan State, always good. Purdue, very good under Matt Painter.
Did I say Kansas?
Kansas is 4th.
Wow.
Yes. So
one there.
We almost had 2 and 4, if you will, available this offseason, which is interesting. UConn was 5. Returning back, obviously, in the last few years. They were not in the top 10 before. Arizona 6, Michigan 7. Florida was tied with Texas for 8th, and then UCLA 10th. So that's how the coaches, or at least this group of coaches, viewed the best jobs in America. Any bones to pick there?
No, I know you said it's based on like history, location,
Whatever
this
you
and
want it
that.
to be. Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty much just, are they good?
Are they good?
Are they good?
Right.
That's it.
And really, I think another commonality there is like, do they have the ability to continue to be good?
Yeah.
Right. Not just good, but the ability to keep spending, recruiting, and being good. If you
Right.
go there, are you going to win? There's no school on this list where you think they shouldn't win more, even like Texas as an example. Like everyone that goes to Texas, like football the same, like, hey, big school, huge base, ton of money,
Yep.
they're going to win. Right. So, and then the basketball schools all near the top, really.
Yeah. Makes sense.
All right. Cam Eller will join us next. We'll talk some college football and the NFL draft coming up.
This segment is presented by Bowegan's Beer Company. Love data? Love analytics? Let's take a deeper dive into both as we talk to Cam Meller.
What you know is very limited, and what you don't know is limitless.
The Chief Analytics and Data Officer at Pro Football Network. You can follow Cam on X or Twitter at Cam Meller.
Always look forward to these conversations when I'm in with Cam Meller. Mike Tuckett from Marc Daniels traveling with UCF Baseball today. Cam, we're inching closer to the NFL draft. I'm excited. How are you feeling about it?
I'm home and I'm happy to be home after traveling a bunch in the lead up. But the next 3.5 weeks is our Super Bowl, as we say. So I'll see your time in January and early February, and I'll raise you in April because it's just as crazy for us and so many other people in this industry.
Love it. Love it. Now, Fernando Mendoza, unsurprisingly, performed well at his pro day yesterday. Today, Kirk Cousins signed a deal with the Raiders, who we assume will take Fernando Mendoza number one. I asked Chris Vasquez earlier in the show how many games before Mendoza becomes a starter knowing Cousins is there. Now I'll ask you, how long do you think Mendoza does it take for him to take over with the Raiders?
For me, if I'm a Raiders fan, I'm counting 2026 as almost like a lost cause. So I hope he doesn't play a single game of meaningful action. I hope he doesn't have to start. I think as good as Mendoza is, we saw one terrific season. The intangibles were all there. At Indiana, there was middling success where you sort of saw things when he was at Cal. So I think the age-old former way that we used to usher in first overall picks was sit him for a year, let him get acclimated, let him understand what it takes to be a pro. A little different nowadays with how much we've turned into sort of semi-pro in college football. So he's maybe a little bit more ready than those quarterbacks of old. But Kirk Cousins should be a guy that can do some things and showcase what they need on offense and also tutor and mentor Mendoza. So if I'm a Raiders fan, I don't want him to play. But in reality, we probably get to maybe week 8 where you want to see what you got type of thing. So I would say halfway through the year, we do see Mendoza in action.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Now, the answer to this can be none or zero if you like. So I'll present it this way. Let's take Mendoza off the board. Let's take Ty Simpson off the board. That's a discussion I know you had with Mark last week, and there'll be further discussions on him going up to the draft. Who would you circle as the guy with the possibility to have an NFL career as a starting quarterback from this draft?
Yeah, it's as much as I want to say there's potential with somebody like Drew Aller and even Carson Beck with the skill set that they have, I think the easiest answer is Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. He's a pro's pro. He's a son of a coach. He's going to be incredibly ready from day one to be this professional quarterback. I think that's what we heard from LSU the entire time in his college career, but also, knowing that his father has been in the NFL for so long, he's had that ingrained in him. So I think if you look at a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, probably not right away, but I think if there's some things that you can look at that his skill set is available, I think he's probably the only one. Maybe Taylor Green as well, sort of in that tight Taysom Hill type role for Taylor Green. I think I like his ability, but no, Garrett Nussmeier would be my next one and probably the only one, really.
Yeah, I'm betting an upset. I'm betting on Taylor Green. That'd be my pick.
Yeah. That's how can you not?
Yeah, he's got traits. If we're running on something, I'd run on traits. Jermon McCoy, I know Chris Vasquez was excited for Tennessee's pro day. He's a big pro day guy. Looked the part. It's been a long time since he got hurt for Tennessee. I thought he was the best corner in America a year ago. Didn't get to play this last year. What did he do for himself in your eyes?
He cemented himself as, to me, probably I want to say CB2, cornerback 2, but I look at Mansour Delane and I put him at CB1A and then McCoy at CB1B because I don't know if I can, without having the access. To me, he cemented who he is, and he cemented that he is in that discussion with Delane to be the first cornerback off the board. And it's hard probably to take a player that hasn't played and will not have played in almost 2 years once you finally do get him on the field for you. But what he was able to produce and showcase, it looks fine, it looks healthy. So as long as you're comfortable with medicals, I have no issue with it because of his upside. So if you get him, you're going to steal probably a top 10 overall pick with some value there.
Maybe it's just that I'm identifying cases where teams have been burned, but I think of Aaron Curry coming out of Wake Forest, and I think of Isaiah Simmons coming out of Clemson, and we move them somewhere else on the football field, and we don't get the results we thought we were going to get out of a very talented guy. And I'm not telling you Arvell Reese is not talented at Ohio State, but it feels as though we're potentially positioning him to have to do something a little bit different. And when we're doing that, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. How do you feel about what will happen with Arvell Reese, who might go as high as number 2 overall?
Yeah, he's probably the most talented overall player, and that's the adage, right? Or that's the question here with him. He played 327 snaps with his hand in the dirt, and he played 320 snaps with his as an off-ball linebacker of types. And so, in the NFL, what do you prefer him to play? And I think it's a matter of OTAs being incredibly important. You don't want OTAs to be incredibly important and preseason workouts and games for a number 2 overall pick. But I think for him, it's going to be, because we're going to look at him. He's not like the Trayvon Walker type where, he's got that big body and NFL frame. Arvell Reese doesn't necessarily have the frame and to play with his hand in the dirt against some of these offensive tackles, because he did showcase some of that lack of strength against some of the bigger guys. But can he cover if he's to play an off-ball linebacker? I think, to me, in the future, I want him as sort of that hybrid Micah Parsons off-ball linebacker while he's got it, but then let him get some strength and then stick him in the dirt. And so it's a unique ability for him. And I want to say he's good enough to buck that trend, but no, I would have said Isaiah Simmons was the same. So buyer beware a little bit with Arvell Reese, but as long as he got a good strength and conditioning program, he'll be just fine.
I give you $1 to wager. Who are you wagering on 10 years from now is the best Buckeye between Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, and Caleb Downs in the NFL?
Did not expect this one, and what a problem if you're an Ohio State fan to have 3 potential. To me,
it's a choice that whoever selects the first one had to make, and so I'm just putting it out there. Like, they're all great, they're all expected to go high. Like, which one are you choosing?
Caleb Downs. I think the lack or the highlight reel plays you can make as a safety of his skill set, his caliber. Lost his black stripe 5 practices in, that's unheard of. At Ohio State in this new era of Ohio State football. Caleb Downs, to me, I think there's enough of these skill sets that you can see some of these all-pro players that with longevity too. I think he plays a fierce game, but also a safe game that he makes some highlight real plays without putting his body on the line a little bit. So 10 years, 15 years down the road, I'd go Caleb Downs, but man, that's splitting hairs.
I'm with you on that one. I think he'll affect the game in more ways than the other 2 guys. Want to focus on the wide receivers. I'll start with Columbus here. How do you measure Carnell Tate against the legacy that is the Ohio State receiver room over the last half decade?
It's unfair, and USF fans be happy that I'm Brian Hartline, and the rest of the country should be happy that Brian Hartline is no longer in Columbus.
Sure.
Because of
although they got Chris Henry Jr. now. I mean, that kid looks like
really, it's incredible. It's incredible what he's ever produced. I mean, this wide receiver room, we've never seen anything like this, and I think Tate. Marvin Harrison Jr. seemed to come on a little bit stronger as we got a little bit better down the year. And so jury's still proverbially out on him. I still think he's incredibly talented. But I think if you look at what Tate was able to do, even with the guy who we wanted to say is the number 1 overall pick in Jeremiah Smith next year, capable of that, what he was able to do and produce, he has everything. And I don't know if you look at like the Chris Olave type or Jackson Smith-Njigba, if he had every skill set. And that's why, JSN obviously doing what he's been able to do as his quarterback's best friend and make all the money he's made now. All of them are incredible. But I think Carnell Tate's lid lifting ability, the deep threat that he is better than all of the rest so far. And so Tate, to me, doesn't take the cake yet, but I mean, he deserves his praise among these all-time greats that he was in the same wide receiver room with.
I've seen some T. Higgins comped for him. How do you feel about that, or what he is?
Better. Yeah, T. Higgins, but better. T. Higgins with a little bit more shifty, and a little bit more elusiveness, and a little bit better routes. And I think an overall better route too than T. Higgins did. So, yeah, just stick him on any quarterback one, and you're going to make your quarterback happy.
All right, that sounds good. Talk me off the edge. I'm maybe too excited about Casey Concepcion and his ability maybe to become the number 1 wide receiver out of this draft.
Yeah, that's so if you look at the new age NFL, right? The JSNs, where we were at, the Puka Nacua, hopefully he gets his head right. The players that are lining up a little bit closer, they're not the outside receivers, a little bit closer, they shift around, they go in pre-snap motion, and they're able to run those whip routes, run these quick outs, run the routes that are going to be his quarterback's first read. And I think Concepcion is that type of guy in this class. So it would not surprise me. I love the idea that we're reaching there, not reaching, but we're not the prototypical X receiver, the 6'3", 6'4", 225-pound guys. This is the new age NFL, and I think Casey Concepcion has that ability to be his QB's best friend, his QB's first read, and 4 or 5 years down the road, we're talking about him signing a massive mega deal. So it will not surprise me at all.
Yeah, and he's not like a slot. I like a Mekhi Lemon out of USC is more of a slot only kind of guy. If he's and he might be very successful in doing that. I think Concepcion plays, to your point, he can go out and play boundary. He can play Z. He can play in the slot. He can move all over. And man, I know we get hyper analytical here, but if you look at some of the empty yards, Marcel Reed was a good college quarterback at A&M for him, but holy smokes, you start analyzing, and there's a lot of like wide open KC Concepcion, and the ball's either overthrown or doesn't go his way.
Yeah, there's a lot that he produces, I think. And if you look, I think the term that we use for him is he's a human joystick. And so for that, I mean, find him a favorable matchup get a crafty offensive coordinator and have this guy move in motion, start him outside, get him on a slot corner or a nickel or a hybrid safety. And all of a sudden it's mismatch in that quarterback, a good quarterback. Not saying Marcel Reed wasn't talented, maybe not the best thrower of open receivers. So
right.
I love the call out there because I think his potential is significantly higher than those mid round one guys.
All right, I'm gonna give you one more. Zachariah Branch, 5-star to SC, goes to Georgia this past year. Very clear movement. You're talking about a joystick. Very clear movement skills as a return man. But I think the number is 53% of his targets were at or behind the line of scrimmage this past year. Like basically, he's a gadget player. He's Tutu Atwell and, not Tavon Austin on his best day, but I struggle to invest a high draft pick in somebody who may only touch the ball 2 or 3 times a game potentially as an outcome. But I get maybe the appeal of seeing the 5-star athlete. How do you sit on Zachariah Branch?
Yeah, I sit with where I think if you're going to invest a higher draft pick, you don't want to put him on special teams too. And I think Branch has punt return and kick return abilities written all over him as well at the NFL level.
You have to put him. You have to put him back there. Like, otherwise, I think you're wasting his talents.
100%. I mean, there's game-breaking speed, and maybe I don't know if we're talking about he ran the 40 as best as he possibly could. It doesn't matter. There's football speed to me that Zachariah Branch has. There's change of direction ability, quickness. There's probably explosiveness. He's probably the most explosive of the receivers in this entire class, and that's. To me, he's a firm day 2, and honestly, it's going to take one of these GMs just to fall in love with that ability. But I think that former 5-star, consensus 5-star ability is resonating thoroughly, and I think we did see enough of it. I think we saw enough of it. It's the Georgia offense didn't quite fit to the strength and the skill set, and they used him probably wrong. So around the line of scrimmage, give him the ball, and he's going to make some dudes miss. But yeah, I agree. I want to see more from him at an NFL level before investing, obviously, any more than that day 2 pick.
Yeah, that's where it gets so tricky. Is how a team uses their college guy. Is it to the best of their own abilities? Like Tennessee. I brought up Tennessee earlier. They're their own animal. Like Chris Brazzell is a very talented guy. Tulane used him a little different than Tennessee. Tennessee's and what they do with their system, and UCF fans know this, like of Heupel, like it's all verts. Guys are lining up on the sideline. It's hard to get a gauge. And, Jalen Hyatt, a guy that the Giants took, a bit of a miss. He really hasn't fulfilled. So you start viewing it with some skepticism whether or not Tennessee wide receivers can reach their full potential. Like that's the hard part. And how do you, real quick to let you go on this one, like how do you evaluate like, hey, how somebody in a system in college is going to project to the NFL under a different one?
Yeah, I think if you look at it, so use the Jalen Hyatt and Chris Brazzell comp right there. They're very different receivers, but they were asked probably to do the exact same thing in that Tennessee offense. And so honestly, what I would do is I would look at that's where I think you bank on trades. And so Brazzell at 6'5", 200 pounds and an incredible lid lifter, but there's a route that he made at Tulane before transferring to Tennessee. And it was that whip route. He took 2 steps inside, stutter stepped, and all of a sudden he lost the cornerback so badly that Michael Pratt was able to literally take his time and almost celebrate before he threw the ball to him. Yeah. He was so wide open. So the ability that Brazzell has with his routes, I think he sort of breaks that mold. But I think that's what you have to do. You have to do the full picture of him for some of these, the Tennessee type receivers where, there's a lot more situations similar to that. So you get the whole picture.
And I mean, that's the fun part or challenging part, if you will, even if a college football fan is following the paths of these guys. I think the NFL is going through that same thing. Is like we have to identify what they did here when they were a freshman, here when they were a sophomore, here when they were a junior, like different systems, different looks at people. And sometimes performance goes up, sometimes it goes down based on that. Fun challenge for you. That's for sure, Cam.
This has been as busy a time as ever, and it's only going to get the same way from now on. So, a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Check out Cam's stuff. Always good stuff there, getting you ready for the NFL draft, and you can do your mock drafts there as well. If you're a fan who dies to figure out who your team's going to pick, they got that simulator for you as well. Cam, thank you for the time today.
My pleasure, Mike. Thanks a lot, guys.
Cam Mellor, really good stuff at Pro Football Network, College Football Network, and Yeah, you into the draft simulators at all?
Oh my God, I do it every day.
Do you really?
I actually have it bookmarked on my browser
It's
every day.
addicting, though,
I love
isn't it?
It's
Now, do
so
you
much
just
fun.
do like one round or two
No,
rounds? Do you go full 7?
I do all 7. I'm
Yeah.
not the most knowledgeable, I'll admit,
Yeah.
when it comes to college
Well,
football,
yeah, once
especially
you
when you get to the
certainly
later
a
rounds.
certain point, yeah, you're just looking for names,
But I do have a couple scenarios that I would hope play out for the
Mhm.
Cowboys with their 2 picks, one at 12, one at 20, that I hope play out. And every time those scenarios are gone in my mocks, I'm like, God,
Yeah.
I got to pivot.
Right. But in a way, that's what you want to see.
Yeah.
Because that's maybe more. I find it like when I do one of those and it's like, oh, yeah, this guy's available like in the second round. It's like, no, I don't think they're going to be, though. I think they're going to be long. And they keep showing up available. And like you're looking at other things where it's like, no, I don't think they're going to be there. Right.
Yeah.
And so you can mislead yourself into thinking your team's going to do a lot better than they actually are.
Yeah. And then I love the fact that, trades are available to you. I love the fact that it's got,
Yes. I love sitting on like, oh, what are the
trades?
But then you get, I've gotten carried away. I did
Yeah.
like 8 trade backs and I got like 4 future first round picks. It's like, oh, this probably isn't realistic either.
Yeah. I try and limit it, if any trades at all. I try and just keep what the Cowboys have and, go from there and try and set an expectation of what would be available when they pick.
I'll be honest, though, like between fantasy baseball drafts and March Madness, I haven't done one yet, but we're probably embarking the next couple of weeks now that we're clear of doing multiple each day.
It's so much
Especially
fun.
now that the Dolphins have 2 picks. It's even more interesting.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. It's almost 11 o'clock. WYGM Orlando, WJRR HD2 Cocoa Beach, FM 96.9 The Game, AM 740 Orlando's sports leader. Back with the news next.
Let's really do the news.
Yes. Now it is time to do the news.
But now it's time for the news.
It is time for the news. I'm Mike Tuck from Marc Daniels, Beat of Sports. Mark's traveling with UCF baseball. He'll be back on the air tomorrow. Voice willing. A little scratchy. Chris Vasquez here as well. Magic. They were in action last night. They'll be back in action tomorrow night, hopefully performing better than they did last night. You want the bad news or the good news?
I always do bad news first.
All right, bad news is the Magic got clobbered. It wasn't close. Atlanta has been red hot recently. They're climbing the standings where we thought the Magic would be climbing about 2 weeks ago. 130-101. Atlanta wins. Magic game that really wasn't close. Got blown open in the second quarter, even more so in the third. That's the bad news. The good news is that Franz Wagner returned. In case you missed it, Franz was back after an extended absence. Last night, he finished with 12 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists on 5 of 13 shooting, 0 for 6 from long range. So still got that part down. In just 20 minutes, starters didn't need to play that much as the game was over in the second half. So it kind of saved everybody's legs as they go into playing Dallas tomorrow night. The Magic have, 7 games left? Yeah. No, it's 6 games left. I thought it was 6 earlier. 6 games left. They're at Dallas, at New Orleans, then back home for Detroit and Minnesota, and then finish on the road at Chicago and at Boston. I guess you could look at this optimistically. Detroit and Boston might be well positioned, although both teams, even shorthanded, play hard. Emphasis on playing hard.
Mm-hmm.
New Orleans is, going through the motions. Dallas is going through the motions. Minnesota's fighting for seeding, but not entirely healthy, although they did get Ant back. And Chicago clearly is looking at the lottery at this point and embarrassing themselves. They gave up a ton of points last night, too. So, yeah, that's it for the Magic. Hard to be really optimistic about that.
So what was the good news?
The good news is Franz is back. That's good news. He didn't play particularly, but no one did, right? Like, that is good news.
Okay.
Again, half class full here. There are 6 games left. None of these games are going to eliminate you from the play-in, which is probably where you're stuck now, barring somebody or somebody's in front of you falling apart and you just winning the last 6. You're going to be in the play-in. So either you're playing on the road to get into the 7 seed, or you're playing at home to play another day to fight for the 8 seed. That's where you're at. And I'd rather be there with Franz as part of it than not.
There's just nothing about this roster that says they're going to give me blank amount of games consistently together.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of if Franz is back or not, either someone else is going to get hurt.
Let me ask. That's obviously if you're a skeptic, and many of you are based on our text line and conversations earlier today on the bridge and even over the last few weeks, right? That's fine. That's fair. They are 40-36, though, not 36-40. And we have seen, again, glass half full, we have seen this team play on a level where you think they can not only compete in the playoffs, but win a series or maybe multiple in the playoffs. That has been part of this season as well, has it not? Have we seen this team go on winning streaks and look the part at times? We have. So
there's been
here's to finding that light switch and flipping it back the other way.
There's been a lot more valleys this season, even though
no, there hasn't though.
They're
40-36. There's been more peaks than valleys.
I would disagree.
40 is bigger than 36.
Okay, and looking at the standings, that's only a 1 spot difference in the playoff standings.
What do you mean?
If they're 36-40, they're the 10 seed.
Well,
so
yes,
there's not much of a difference.
Well, that's a different way to look at it.
It's been a massive disappointment any way you cut it for the Magic this season. Desmond Bane has been a plus. He started out slow, but he's picked it up. He's been their most consistent player, their most reliable player.
Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
And it's hard. if you're a Magic fan, to bank on these guys staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what kind of deals are out there. I know everyone wants to just trade everyone away or especially fire the coach, which more than likely that's going to happen. I don't know what the fix is. Maybe training staff needs to be looked at because
We've been saying that for 25 years.
Like, good Lord. I mean, this team is just every single year and it's long-term injuries.
You know who never disappoints, Chris?
Who's that?
The Pittsburgh Pirates. They always deliver a losing product for their fans. But a glimmer of hope. Number 1 overall prospect, Connor Griffin, is on his way up. They're not making their fans wait any longer. The shortstop will make his debut today in the club's, tomorrow in the club's home opener. So there's that.
Okay.
It's been a really good start for rookies across Major League Baseball. This is the guy who people point to as the top guy. He's got the goods. We'll see if he delivers.
Well, we'll see how long they keep Paul Skeens for.
Yeah, there's that too. There was something else. Oh, the breaking news from earlier today, I suppose I should mention. Kirk Cousins has signed with the Vegas Raiders.
Crowd goes mild. I love that line.
And the crowd goes mild. Yeah, we're teasing. ESPN was building it up on television in front of us here. Breaking news, big red capital letters, and it just stayed on the screen for, I don't know, 30 seconds. Like, you're like, oh,
what is it?
What it is? AJ Brown? Like, what's happening? Another guy got arrested? Tiger flipped another car? Like, what's going on? Oh, no, it's Kirk Cousins.
Yes. Nothing says breaking news like a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Signing probably a 1-year deal?
I have not actually seen that. I would think it's probably, who knows, maybe it's 2 years and, easy out.
Yeah.
Kirk's not in need of money at this stage in his life and his career.
Nope.
So that is your news. Oh, and I guess the other thing that's sort of interesting, scary interesting, but Cadeau, the starting guard for Michigan yesterday, unable to travel with the club to Indianapolis for the Final Four because of an allergic reaction, which everything appears to be okay, but like, oh wow, like that, you don't want that.
No.
For the kid or the Wolverines, who are already without LJ Case in their backup point guard, so that would have been real trouble for Michigan. But looks like everything's going to be okay, and he'll join the team in Indy for the Final Four. The Final Four now just a couple of days away. I'm going to give you some thoughts on that, but specifically how these teams got to where they're at, and it's again for those that want to paint a picture of this is the formula, that ain't it. There are more than one way to win, and these 4 teams represent that. We'll detail that next year on the Beat of Sports.
Ready for more sports talk? Of course you are. In for Marc Daniels, here's Mike Todd.
It's 11:20 on FM 96.9 The Game, AM 740, online and streaming. You can watch CV and me move our lips, nod our heads, be animated on the YouTube stream. Honestly, most of the time, just forget it's there. You just operate as normal. But you can watch us on YouTube, 96.9 Game On. It's on Twitter as well to find that link. If you're just listening to the stream itself or you miss any of the show, you want to go back and listen, podcast style, 969thegame.com. It's all there and available for you. And we do appreciate all of your listening. And thank you guys for listening when I'm in. Marc Daniels traveling today. Great time of year. Love March. I've decided over life, October's the best sports month. With everything, basketball starting, baseball ending, football full swing. Like it is, you are in it with everything. But March is a very close second, and March Madness always delivers, and it has again. I was actually reading. I really enjoy reading Stuart Mandel, who's at The Athletic now, and Sports Illustrated before that. Does a really good job with his mailbag. Usually gets some insightful questions, and the last couple of mailbags have been sort of. He does football, but he used to do college basketball and certainly follows it, and a lot of basketball-related football ones. And one of the questions posed was, in football terms, how would you compare what happened in a Duke-UConn to a game that's happened in college football? Anything? Like his example was spot on, really, like as good as you can come up with. Anything pop into your head if thinking of the way a college football game ended the way the Duke-UConn game ended?
I guess maybe Vince Young, USC.
Okay.
Texas USC.
Just because of the drama.
The magnitude of the game, the ending.
Yeah.
That's the one that just quickly comes to mind.
Yeah, he, on an offshoot of that, it's funny you say that, he talked about the most electric playoff, if you will, endings in the college football playoff BCS era, and that was his number one because of, and it's hard to explain unless you live through it. There really hasn't been a more hyped championship game than that one. Now, we had 5 weeks, 6 weeks to hype it, and USC was undefeated and trying to win another national championship, so a lot built into that. But the game he came up with is really, like, again, on the mark, was the Michigan State football game where the Michigan punter dropped the ball, tried to pick it up, lost it, and Michigan State literally returned it for a touchdown as time expired when it was a 2-point game.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is you look at it closer, 10 seconds left. 10 seconds left in Duke-UConn. a mistake, if you will, which I guess you would identify as maybe Caden dribbling it first before making a decision, the punter dropping it before making a decision to try to pick it up instead of fall on it. In Caden's case, just hold it, if you will. And then, now it didn't end at the buzzer, but as close as you can get.
Right.
I can see that. Yeah, like, because it was the shock of it, right? There's no way you cut, especially, reality is, right? And you don't want to lose this in time. Like, UConn had 2 free throws down 3 and missed the first, right? So if they make the first one, the play is still the play, but the game is far from secure because it's a 1-point game. The best you can do is force it back to 3 by making 2 foul shots, and therefore the game still is in peril with 6 seconds left or 5 seconds left, whatever the case might be, and we'll see what happens there.
Also, I don't think this is talked about enough. Credit to UConn for not necessarily fouling right away, despite there being so few time left, like such few seconds.
Yeah, they I guess you could have maybe. No, I think they were trying to trap Cam Cam Boozers in the corner before he got it back. And again, Duke executed it perfectly.
Yeah.
Back to Sarr, who they wanted a foul, who they said, and he's the worst foul shooter on Duke. But they couldn't get to him quick enough, right? So he got rid. It's, again, perfect execution, if you will, on their end of it as well. But that's always, I think, in college hoops versus the NBA too, is the idea of players are more apt and prone to make mistakes. Like, I think of the Northern Iowa Texas A&M game. Like, that is as big of an unraveling, multiple turnovers on consecutive possessions as you could see. Even Duke Houston last year where Duke's up 7 and now it's 4, but then they turn it over underneath their own basket and now it's 2. Like, it can come apart quickly if you're not able to handle the ball.
Right.
In the NBA, that's rare. Like, you don't see guys turn it over on traps very often in the NBA. The ball handling's too good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was his confidence. That's actually, it's not the magnitude of a game. It's a rivalry though, and the shock is like, how? Like, how did they? All they had to do was get the punt away.
Yeah.
Even if the kid falls in the ball, I know they're only up a couple, but you're probably looking at a 58-yard field goal. In that case, to try to win the game. So even that would have required something. I mean, that would have been, I guess, the equivalent of the Hail Mary shot by Mullen, a Hail Mary field goal but the return for touchdown's even more shocking.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what he came up with. Again, like, for those that don't follow the sport, I think sometimes it's lost in like, oh, well, this is the way to do it, right? Like, oh, yeah, Duke failed because they're too reliant on freshmen, right? Which was the thing with Kentucky and then even Duke, is that they've been the two schools I think most identified. Kansas has had some, but easily the two most. And we had the McDonald's All-Star game the other night. The one and dones, right? Flooded those schools. They're the two schools, Duke and Kentucky, that have gotten 2 or 3, 4 of those guys any given year and started them. Other schools get 1 or 2 and they chip in and they help. And AJ DeBonsa is dominant for a BYU, and Darius Haycuff is dominant for Arkansas, but it's not like they're littering their starting lineup with a bunch of freshmen. Well, again, counterpunch is, yes, Duke started 3 freshmen, which, they actually weren't doing all year long because younger Boozer wasn't coming off the bench, or was coming off the bench until Foster got hurt. Arizona starts 3 freshmen. They've started 3 freshmen all year long, right? Like, there's not like, oh, yes, you have to be older. It helps. It certainly helps if you have some age and some experience, but that's not a guarantee of anything. Size has been a big thing this year, right? Size in the front court, especially. All 4 of these teams that are left are big across the board. Illinois is, by measurement, the largest team in America. Duke was the second before they got eliminated. UConn and Michigan are each in the top 30. I mean, we're talking about. But if you just look at their front courts, are enormous. Michigan is actually huge, but their backcourt's a little bit smaller. And Arizona, I think, is in the top 5 as far as size. Like, in Florida, dominant year, right? Their front court was the story for them this season, right? From small forward, power forward, big, like, they were big across the board. But that doesn't mean, like, that's the surefire way to win, right? No different than 3-point shooting, right? Now, Michigan, of the teams that are left, is the team that shoots it the most often and the best. Illinois can, but it's not relying on it. Connecticut has, but has been back and forth, and maybe that's another part of that game is UConn was so bad from 3 and then made, I think, 5 of their last 6 to beat Duke, right? So the law of averages, they regressed to the mean when it meant the most at the very end. They started knocking down their threes. And Illinois shoots them, but again, not reliant on them. But that can play both ways. Last year, what was the tale for Florida? Walter Clayton Jr., right? Yep. Especially him, but 3-point shooting in the backcourt. I mean, that backcourt, the 3 guards they played, plus Thomas Houck and the way he stepped up, that was as much the story. They still had the size last year, but it really was the clutch shooting and the 3-point shooting in the backcourt that played for Florida last year in complements with a bigger front court. But it's this story every year in March is, hey, like, are you going to make that shot? The Gators almost lost a few times last year in the tournament, but Walter Clayton Jr. saved them with a shot. And sometimes that's the way these things flow is, does the shot go in or out and keep you alive until the next day that you're playing? And the other part of this is the portal, right? You can play it as though homegrown. Well, it doesn't necessarily always play that way. I mean, Michigan starts 5 guys that transferred in. Yaxel Lindenberg was a star at UAB that they paid to come to Michigan as opposed to enter the NBA draft. Elliot Cadeau at North Carolina. right? And it's not just stealing up. It's one thing to take the guy from UAB to Michigan, but we see this, and it's very commonplace to go from one major to another major, right? You're going from, we just labeled the best jobs in America for coaches. In North Carolina, it was number 2. Elliot Cadeau goes from North Carolina to Michigan. In theory, that's not the way it should go, but dollars and cents, who you're recruiting, a lot of things factor into those things. Morez Johnson from Illinois to Michigan. Mara from UCLA to Michigan. And Burnett, he bounced around a little bit, Texas Tech and Alabama, now to Michigan, right? So they built their team largely through the portal. Really, the freshman in the backcourt is the only guy that McKinney, that Michigan plays, that is a freshman, right? So, and they're not relying on freshmen at all. They got one guy who contributes off the bench. UConn's got 2 guys that have come in. Illinois' got a couple of guys that have come in. Arizona's really only got 1 that has come in, but there's different builds. I mean, that's the end game here. Do you want great size? Yes. Do you want to have great shooting? Yes. Do you want to have great backcourt play? Yes. It's like at some point you realize you're checking every box, and that every team that advances in the tournament has checked enough of those boxes and maybe gotten fortunate on a shot that goes in or a shot that misses to keep it going. So long story short, anyone that tells you that they know what the formula is for winning, they don't. They don't. There's several factors that go into this, and all these teams are well coached. Dusty May's a tremendous coach. Brad Underwood's a tremendous coach. Obviously, Dan Hurley, in spite of him rubbing heads with officials, is a tremendous coach. Right? And Tommy Lloyd's a tremendous coach, who, by the way, was just an assistant under Few, right? Like everyone's past, Dusty May from small school FAU brings them to the Final Four, the more traditional, if you will, climbing the ladder. Tommy Lloyd goes from just assistant to suddenly thrust in the spotlight, one of the biggest programs in America. Hurley climbed the ladder to get to where he is, right? There's different paths that even the coaches can travel. So again, there's not a, hey, you got to go pluck the guy with a proven track record, or you got to get the guy that's been a head coach before. No, like even from that vantage point, they've all gotten here differently from each other. And come next Monday night, we're going to crown a champion, and it's either going to be incredibly unique, and there's a pretty good chance that's the case, or it's more of the same, and that's the lesser variety here. We'll dissect some of those individual matchups coming up next, give you my thoughts on who I think will be cutting down the nets this year. This is the Beat of Sports on FM 96.9 The Game.
Just because Marc Daniels isn't here doesn't mean there's no beat of sports. Filling in for Mark, here's Mike Talk.
So, Hot Tub Time Machine is one of those movies I wouldn't consider like in my top 10, maybe probably not even my top 20 for all time like comedies, but it's a terrific movie. I enjoy it when it's on. Like, inevitably, if I'm not doing anything, I might sit there and watch it until a commercial if it's on television or something like that. The general idea, Chris Vasquez on the other side was telling me during the break, he hasn't seen it.
I have not seen it.
Right. So it's worth seeing.
Okay.
I would definitely say it's worth seeing. But why that came up, and then I stopped myself mid-conversation and said, all right, I'll present it on air this way. You brought up an alternate like ending for like a college football game that related to
so we had a couple of texters
the
mention
Duke
the
game. Yeah.
We had a couple of texters mention the kick six, Auburn, Alabama, Chris Davis taking the field goal.
Right.
The missed
Stunning
Alabama field goal.
Yeah.
Great ending.
Which
Fantastic.
it is. I mean, absolutely a stunning ending, but the game was tied.
Yep.
Right. If Alabama misses the kick, which is a 58-yarder,
Yep.
I mean, it was a bomb of a kick for a college kicker. You're not necessarily expecting him to make it. Kid didn't have that range.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those, like, it made me think of Hot Tub Time Machine. So there's a scene like they've gone back in time and they realize they're watching John Elway's The Drive against Cleveland. They've gone back into the 80s and they realize it's on and they start betting because they know exactly what's going to happen in the game. And and people are like, no way, right? Like, and so though, it'd be like watching, if you will, even the kick six.
Mm-hmm.
And where it started me on Hot Tub Time Machine is like, if you go back to like after Auburn gets it tied and Alabama has the ball, you'd be like, well, there's no way they're going to get in field goal range. I mean, legitimately, from where Alabama started in the time left on the clock, you'd be like, they're not even getting in. This game's going to overtime.
Right.
And then even like they ran, usually you get a good play to start a drive. You always hear coaches, first play of a 2-minute drill, first play of is the most important to get you off on the right. They did it, right? And so you'd be like, no way. There's no way, right? And then, of course, you're lining, there's no way, right? And then same thing with, all right, oh, he missed it. Oh, there's no way. Like if I told you what the odds are, and I don't like the analytics of percentages, chance of winning throughout games. I get it. I find it a bunch of BS. I'm not too worried about what it is either. But, obviously the numbers were heavily in the favor of Duke once the UConn misses the first free throw, even if he makes the second one, right? It's like, all right, now it's going to take something unique in terms of college basketball. And then obviously it happens. So you're stunned by it. So a little bit of Hot Tub Time Machine. There's no way. There's zero. And then all of a sudden it actually happens that way for sure.
Okay.
So we have had this before, certainly in the NFL. But God, I felt like I grew up in the 80s and the 90s where it felt like the NFC title game was the Super Bowl every year. It's like, all right, this is the real Super Bowl. They'll play for the AFC Championship and somebody will get to have a little party and show up at the Super Bowl and be the, dessert for whoever is actually going to win the championship. And your Cowboys were part of that with the 49ers for several years. I mean, that's what this one lines up for. Like, if we're being real, like Duke and Florida were right there all year long, and then Michigan and Arizona, right? If we're just being honest, like the 4 number 1 seeds were the 4 best teams in any argument, in any order throughout the course of the year. And now we get Michigan and Arizona in one, and then we get a 2-3, a really nice matchup between Illinois and UConn in the other. But it feels like, whoever wins the late game on Saturday night is going to cut down the nets. Does it not? At least on paper.
Yeah, makes sense.
They don't play it on paper, but that's the way it looks on paper. Well, it is interesting for Michigan and Arizona. Both made it to the Sweet 16 a year ago, so they didn't have deep tournament runs. Some of those kids are back. In the case of Arizona, they got 3 freshmen, so some newbies as far as they're concerned anyway. They haven't played in a little while. They've only played 4 times ever. So I was like racking my brain. When was the last time they played? In 22 in Vegas in a preseason, not a preseason, but you get a November game. Won by Arizona there. They played back-to-back home and away games in 14 and 15, both won by Arizona in Ann Arbor and in Tucson. And then they played back in 05 in Madison Square Garden. So that's it, 4 times ever, and Arizona's won all 4. So there's really no history between those two. Illinois-UConn, something different. Illinois-UConn played this year in Madison Square Garden, 74-61 UConn in that game. Keaton Wagler, who has become a freshman sensation, likely lottery pick for Illinois, had 3 points in the game, made one shot. Peja Stojakovic's kid, 3 points in the game, made one shot. So on one hand, UConn thoroughly dominated that game earlier this season. On the other hand, do you expect Wagler and Stojakovic, who have both been great for the rest of the year, and that was early in the season, to combine for 6 points? If they do, UConn's going to win. I think we can all agree on that. UConn is an underdog, which surprised me. If you had asked me before they laid the spread, I would have assumed UConn would be favored. I think UConn will win the game. I think UConn offensively is a little bit cleaner than Illinois is. Illinois is big, but I don't think in the way that at times Duke was able to beat up Caravan and take advantage of some of the matchups because of, UConn's tall, but Caravan's a small forward masquerading as a power forward. I don't think the Illini are going to be able to take advantage of that even the way that Duke did. So I think that is an advantage in favor of Connecticut. And if Connecticut shoots the three, and I don't think they're going to shoot it as bad as they did against Duke or really even against UCLA in the previous game, I do think the Huskies are able to win that game. And they played in the Elite Eight a couple years ago as well when UConn won the national title. 77-52 was the final of that one. No one was stopping Connecticut that season. They had a 30-0 run. The Magic can relate. UConn had a 30-0 run in that game from the end of the first half into the second half. So they blistered them and ran away and hit in that one. Michigan, Arizona is a phenomenal one. I mentioned the portal earlier. Kylan Boswell went from Arizona to Illinois, and he's probably their second best player, at least on any given night. He's certainly their second best scorer. Whereas Johnson went from Illinois to Michigan. So there's some closeness there. And then Terrace Reed, who was the player of the East region, UConn's big guy, who did something only three guys have ever done in the NCAA tournament when he went 30-20, almost 30-30 in their second round game. He went from Michigan to Connecticut. So I said earlier about it's not just, transferring up. It makes it harder for Cinderella because a lot of these kids that star end up going to a bigger school the next year. But realistically, a lot of these guys you're going to see went from one school to the other that are in the Final Four now, which is a reminder of two things. One, you're constantly recruiting. But two, just because you lose a star, because we would acknowledge Boswell, Johnson, Reed were all stars. They weren't necessarily stars yet for the programs they were in, but they were planning on it. You're able to replace them. That's the thing is all these teams are still in the Final Four in spite of losing one of those guys to another school. Right. And that's what goes into coaching and finding the right fit. And all these guys have done a brilliant job with that. I think Michigan, I told you in one bracket, I'm going to win. I have Arizona over UConn for the national title, but Michigan was the one I picked in my major cookies bracket. I do think Michigan, because of their size, because of Yaxel being as good of and not necessarily a dominant NBA player, although I think he's going to be a pretty good one. Their 3-point shooting is something that none of these other teams can match. They have the size. I feel like they can get downhill on you. Their spurt ability, as Clark Kellogg says, is unmatched. I think they have the best spurt ability in America. Arizona, love them. They don't shoot a lot of threes. They make a high percentage, but I feel like that's going to put them behind the 8 ball. And I do worry a little bit about how their backcourt's going to match up against Michigan's defense. If they're not able to get into the paint, and I think they'll struggle, especially unless Mara gets in foul trouble. When Duke beat Michigan earlier this year, it's because they got Mara in foul trouble in the first half. He sat out much of the first half. Duke was able to extend the lead. Obviously, two great teams going at it. That's what you're going to see here. Krivas probably a better player than Mara. That's the advantage, I think, if Arizona is to win. Krivas gets Mara in foul trouble and out of the game. And then he's a better shot blocker, able to stay in, and I think that makes a difference for Arizona. I'm picking Michigan, who's a slight underdog, is a slight favorite, and then I'm picking UConn, who's a slight underdog. And then Michigan cuts down the nets.
So I'm just going off my bracket. I have Arizona winning it all.
And they might.
Arizona's my pick.
And they might. They do a lot of things well. Should be a good Final Four, though. No question about it. Something last night unique. Have you ever tried to shoot with the opposite hand or throw with the opposite hand?
Does not look pretty. Does not look pretty.
That happened last night, and I'll tell you why it happened in an NBA game coming up next.
Time for the latest news, gossip, trends, and off-the-wall stories. Trends.
That's the craziest thing I ever heard.
Golden State got throttled last night by San Antonio. They've been playing shorthanded to the point where they actually had to play some of their guys. A guy named Malavi Leons, who I've never heard of before, is playing with an injured right wrist. He is right-handed, was fouled. He had to shoot the foul shots left-handed, CV. Interesting spot to be in. But as an NBA player, as you might imagine, I've watched Vince Carter when he was here, like back in the day, constantly be able to shoot left-handed. He did make 1 out of 2.
Good for him.
He made the second foul shot. So definitely good on him. And Big Ten, West Coast droughts potentially could end, or UConn's going to have a dynasty. So, we'll see if the droughts come to a close. I have a feeling that's what we're going to see. Either Arizona brings it to the West or the Big Ten wins the national title. CV, as always, I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, Tuck.
It's been a pleasure. Marc Daniels will be back tomorrow. See you later.